So let me ask you this. Are robot/AI drivers going to be the future, or is this just a pipe dream? Well, there was an accident recently in San Francisco, and I want to go through some of the details. I'll share my thoughts and get yours as well. So let's jump right in here. Headlines. State regulators cut Cruise's fleet after San Francisco crash involving driverless cars. So this is the Cruise, and I think we have a few people in the community that actually watch the channel that use this thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm sure you've heard of it by now. So basically, the California, it was the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV, they told them to, this is a Cruise here, to immediately reduce the Robotaxi fleet by 50% following the crash. So you got to take a look at the footage for yourself and then see what you think. So take a look.
This was the scene last night at the intersection of Polk and Turk Streets.
Yeah, can you dispatch a battalion chief? We've been involved in an accident versus a Cruise vehicle. There was one person in the vehicle.
Oh, wait, did it involve a fire truck?
As seen in this video, the fire truck was apparently headed southbound, but had moved into the northbound lane, something trucks do to get around other cars. Crews responded on social media. One of our cars entered the intersection on a green light and was struck by an emergency vehicle that appeared to be en route to an emergency scene. One of the firefighters involved in the accident told police what he claims the Cruise vehicle did at the intersection. He says it looked like it lurched. The California Vehicle Code says it is illegal in California not to yield the right-of-way to an emergency vehicle approaching with its lights and sirens.
Here's where the human element comes into play. If I'm driving this car and I hear sirens or I see flashing lights, there is no way that I'm going to move this car, even if I have the green light.
Still, it doesn't mean they get a pass. It's the responsibility of the fire department to make sure that that intersection is free and clear. Look at this video shot today at precisely the same intersection. Cars have already pulled over and stopped. The fire truck moves to the wrong side of the road to get past them. As the truck moves through the intersection, it moves back into its lane right before going by a Cruise vehicle, which, by the way, does not immediately stop like it's supposed to. It eventually comes to a complete stop, but only after the fire truck has passed it.
So now that you've had a chance to see it, I want to hear in the comments what you think. And basically, we're asking the fundamental question is, are robot drivers any better or worse than humans? And that's essentially what it boils down to. And this is going to be decided by the politicians, basically, and / voters. We'll probably end up voting on this kind of stuff. And I would imagine, as you know, San Francisco is kind of a test case, that this issue will spread to other cities if they do indeed want to expand. Let's take a look at more headlines on this one, and I do want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Cruise Robotaxis gets an accident in San Francisco. Fire truck, 1 injured, so someone was hurt here. And this is what they tweeted out, or X'd out, I guess I should say, over on X, formerly known as Twitter. One of our cars entered the intersection on a green light and was struck by an emergency vehicle that appeared to be en route to an emergency scene. Moreover, our primary concern is the rider and their welfare, and we have reached out to offer support. We are also deeply mindful of the well-being of the first responders and individuals affected by this incident. Now, this particular one, you know, we have it on camera, et cetera. We know exactly the intersection. However, it was a month or so ago. We talked about this before on the channel. It was like the fire chief, I believe in San Francisco, was basically saying, hey, this is a problem. And they listed like multiple incidents of things occurring. So I'll give you some basic ideas. You know, like there's fire trucks, they're fighting a fire, and then there may be a robot car just kind of sitting in the middle, not knowing what to do, not just getting out of the way. Because like you can just stop, right? Say when the robot, when the fire trucks come, but sometimes you actually have to move out of the way. So this is sort of where a human can like assess the situation and say, hey, I need to move. Or there's multiple cases where, again, in this one, like where they don't stop. So sometimes they stop when they're not supposed to, or don't stop when they're supposed to, essentially what you're saying. And it's hard to, you know, program the robot to behave exactly the right way because the variables can change. There was another one I remember we looked at before as well, where like it actually drove across the police line, like that, you know, that yellow tape stuff. So these kind of situations, it's harder to program the robot because there's just so many variables. Other things that are going on as well. So we already told you guys about the 50% reduction. So if you're involved in San Francisco, I guess it's going to be, they're going to allow no more than 50 driverless vehicles in operation during the day. And then at night, no more than, I guess it's like 150. So again, this is a 50% cut. One of the things that's interesting for those of you who are Tesla / Elon Musk fanboys and fangirls, this actually should be worrisome to over there at Tesla, because basically Elon Musk has stated, clearly that the value of the stock is connected to FSD / also means full self-driving. So if this technology doesn't work, and I understand the fanboys and fangirls will say, well, Elon Musk technology is better than others, but you still have to get by the regulators. And not only that, you also have to get by the voters, which I think are two different bodies, because you just don't know what regular people are going to think. We saw some early data, again, in a prior video. Essentially, people were okay with assisted driving, and people were okay with, say, like freeway driving, but not necessarily, full autonomous driving, meaning let the robots drive all day, every day. So I do think that's a real concern. Also, too, we've been talking about this as well. As the AI hype has been building up, you can read the headlines here. Will AI, take your job? 27% of jobs in wealthy countries at risk, right? Now, drivers is essentially the most common job in the world. And I think you also have the social issues of if robots do indeed take over, it puts a whole bunch of people out of work. So I think politically that'll be unpopular. And that's sort of like, when the Tesla pumpers are saying, hey, robotaxis are the future, bro. I'm not so certain on that. And so that's why I wouldn't necessarily, or I don't, take that bet that this stuff is the future. That's just my opinion on these things. However, to be fair, let's take a look at, this is the official statement coming out from Cruise. It says, further update on the emergency vehicle collision. There's a couple key points in here that I want to point out to you guys. So let's just read what they said. This is their language in defense of their vehicles. So it says the AV, so that's autonomous vehicle, positively identified the emergency vehicle almost immediately as it came into view. So it's saying, hey, we knew it was a fire truck, that the robot did fine, etc., which is consistent with our underlying safety design and expectation. It is worth noting, however, that the confines of this specific intersection make visual identification more challenging for humans and AV alike. So they're trying to make the case that a human couldn't have done any better. That's the case that they're making. As it is significantly occluded by buildings, meaning that it is not possible to see objects around the corner until they are physically close to the intersection. So my personal opinion on this one is, obviously, yes, they're going to defend themselves. But a human would be able to hear things, and a human would be able to see other vehicles. A human would just kind of have the intuition that the robot doesn't have. So that's the argument I would make. To be fair, though, does that necessarily mean that every single human in the world is better than every single robot in the world? And I think that's where it gets a little bit iffy, because not necessarily, right? Some humans aren't that great at driving, or some humans drive impaired, right? Meaning they're drinking, that kind of thing. So I'm just giving you guys some scenarios, because Cruise also makes the case that this isn't that common. This is what they say. During the course of more than 3 million miles of fully autonomous driving in San Francisco, we've seen an enormous number of emergency vehicles. More than 168,000 intersections just in the first 7 months of this year alone. Our first responders are trying to balance keeping all of us safe while quickly responding to emergency scenes, and we're grateful for their work and dedication. So basically the argument they're going to make is like, yes, it happened. Yes, we do care about safety, but this isn't happening all the time, and we're going to always keep improving. That's the argument they're going to make. I think, though, and I want to point this one out here. If you guys didn't see this, this was, what is this, July 26th, so like about a month or so. No, not even a month ago. It was about a month ago. But basically what it was, I'll just read the headline here. Fire Tesla employee posts new video of full self-driving running a red light. So basically, if you see the video, and I can't play it for you guys swearing the whole time, but basically he's recording as the Tesla runs a red light. And the deal was this intersection is kind of hard because you got the red light there, but then you have like a green light on the right side, right? So it's kind of confusing to the AI. And this is something that I mentioned, is that probably if we do indeed want to go robots, everywhere, every city, we're probably going to have to change the infrastructure to make it so that the robots can either read the traffic signals, et cetera, or just make sure we adjust the signals that makes it just more easier. So, one of the two, but I think our whole infrastructure will probably have to change, because there's any number of crazy roads. And you guys know this. I mean, I know various places where I've lived where like there's certain corners that in your neighborhood that you just know is dangerous. And like, you always, take it really, really cautiously. So, I guess theoretically, I'm just also, also being an advocate for this, robot stuff. Is if you look at, say, something like Google Maps, every now and then you'll see those Google Maps, vehicles drive around the city, et cetera. So they're always constantly mapping. So theoretically, software could adjust to the infrastructure, but I think it's more like the infrastructure needs to change to the AI. So I'm a bit more bearish on this stuff, mostly because, like I said, you got to convince the politicians, you got to convince the voters, and I'm not even convinced necessarily the technology can work. But I gave you some positive sides for defending it, meaning that they would make the case, yes, we're not perfect, but we are still better than humans. That would be the AI Pro. So you saw the footage for yourself. I want to hear your thoughts on this particular subject. What do you think? If you're a regulator, are you going to crack down hard on this thing, or are you going to take the bribes from the vehicle companies? Let's be real, and let these things pass through. So thanks again for your time. Please share your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video.